Welcome to Westside Community Church. You're watching a message titled One Size Fits All by Pastor Andy Six.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, it's so good to sing to you today, to be in your presence. Lord, just to feel your presence and your glory singing over us is amazing. We thank you for that, God. Lord, to think of the lyrics of those songs right there, to know that you are so good that you catch us when our feet begin sinking in the water. Thank you for that. Thank you for providing a way out. Thank you for giving us faith in you, Lord, to look to you, to reach for you. We say that you are good, Lord, in every season of our life. You are worthy to be praised, Jesus. I pray that you bless the message now by your strength and your truth, Holy Spirit. We thank you for this time that we have with each other and with you, Jesus. We ask all this in your name, in Jesus' holy name. And all God's people said, amen. Well, good morning. My name is Pastor Andy. Most of you know me as the worship pastor here. Today, I get to bring a message. How about that? I'm so excited. Yay! And it's not because John is in a snowbank or anything. John is just fine. No, but Pastor John's out of town, so I get to preach today. And aren't you so glad to see Amanda and the team leading? Beautiful. Wasn't that great? Thank you for that. Definitely. Good time of worship in the Lord. I get to sit out here, and I've been here 5 years on staff, and I think I've only sat out here twice and been a part of what is being sung in the room, you know, and not being up here. That's beautiful. You guys really sound good. This section right here, really good. Really good. In fact, we have choir coming up for Easter, so I'm going to bring a sign-up sheet afterwards. That's going to be fun. I don't want to get too far off. I'm so excited to preach, and I want to do something. I want to take us back in the lyrics we just sang, because I'm a music guy, so when we have lyrics, something jumps out at me, I want to share it. So can we pull those lyrics back up? Yeah, Spirit lead me. This is so good. I want to read through this, but I have a question after a little bit. So, Spirit lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. I love this next line. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Such good words there. Take me deeper. You're asking, this is a request. Take me deeper, Lord, than my feet could ever wander, and my faith would be made stronger. Okay, so the question I have is, why is that so much easier to say than it is to do? Why is it easier to sing that than it is to live that? It's a good question, isn't it? It's like, why is it so much easier said than done? I think, for me, I'm so glad, I'm so grateful that the Lord gives us His presence. He gives us His strength. And He's the one that calls us out on the water. It's not like we're, jumping out, just asking, Lord, keep throwing the battles at me, Jesus. Keep throwing me in the deep end. But He does. He calls us out, doesn't He? And I like what the lyrics are saying here. It's almost like echoing what our heart says sometimes. We want to walk out. We want to get out of the boat, don't we? I don't think any of us really want to stay in the boat forever. We want to get out. We want to do more with the Lord. We want to serve Him. We want to be in His presence. The cool thing to me is that God gives us the strength to do that. It's not on our own strength, is it? It's in His strength. It's by His power. It's for His reason and purpose. And so the cool thing to me is that God gives us a certain way to live through these battles, through these challenges like we're singing. He gives us a way to do this, not in our own strength, but it's actually in His way. It's in His armor. And we're going to read about that in the book of Ephesians in a bit. To me, the beauty about God's armor is that it's not something that we have to get sized up for. It's not something you have to be perfect and you have to measure up to fit into. No, it's not like that. It's not like a suit you've got to get measured and tailored for a wedding or anything. God's armor is perfect for every situation. God's armor is perfectly fit for every person. For you, it really is. God's armor fits. It doesn't matter if you've had a terrible life up till now, you've done some awful things. It doesn't matter if you think you've been really good up till now. God's armor is one size fits all. You hear me? His armor is one size fits all for every battle, every situation. God's armor fits. It does. We're going to look at why and how that fits. We're going to look at how we operate in God's armor. The point of the whole day is about God's armor, but it's about how we live through these battles, how we can get out and walk on the water with the Lord, following his leading, and stand our ground against the devil. Because he is the reason, he is the force against us. Okay? So let's do this. Let's go, open up your Bibles if you have them. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 6. It's going to be on the screen if you want to just read along. Ephesians 6, this is Paul writing, and he says this, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power, and put on the full armor of God." Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood. It's not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces in the heavenly realms. We could stop right there. I could pause right there. We could spend the rest of the day uncovering that truth, that our battle is not against each other. Our battle isn't against our wife or our husband or our boss. You know who my boss is, right? My battle's not against my boss. It's not against coworkers. Your battle isn't against, it's not even against money, okay? Your battle is not against flesh and blood. So then who is the battle against? I love that he gives us this instruction manual right here. Our battle is against the rulers, authorities, powers of this dark world and the spiritual forces in the heavenly realms. You've heard the phrase, a spiritual battle, right? It's true. You might think that's a little, spooky. It's the truth. The devil is in the spiritual realm, and he hates you, and he's against you, and he wants to ruin you, even if he just trips you up a little bit, gets you off course a little bit. That's what he's up to. So the point of the day is really to uncover and get used to that, get used to the battle, but train for it, train for it, train for it, so that when it comes, you're ready for it. Does that make sense? Let me keep reading through here. Where are we at? Verse 13. "Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you will be able to stand your ground. And after you've done everything to stand, stand firm then, with a belt of truth buckled around your waist, with a breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. And in addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one." All of them. "Take the helmet of salvation that comes from the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God." And then the last verse, number 18, it says, "And pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. And with this in mind, be alert and always keep praying for the Lord's people." Okay, so what's the takeaway? And what does that mean to us? Because to me, it's a really, it's kind of easy to understand, I guess. It's laid right out there for you. He tells you what to do, tells you how to do it. Well, the question, I guess, then for me is why don't I do that all the time? Do you think that? Are you thinking that now? Why don't I do, this is so easy. It looks like on the surface, why don't I put on the full armor all the time? When I'm in these battles, why don't I, bathe myself in God's truth? Why don't I put on his righteousness? Why isn't it natural for me just to, hold up the shield of faith? Well, because it says also earlier that it's natural for us to fight against each other, right? To think that the battle's against you and me, or you and your kids, or the battle's against the family member. Maybe it's your ex-wife or husband. That's where the battle's at. But that's not it. So I think the point of all this is the training. That's where we're missing. That's what we're missing. We're missing training at this. So every time the battle comes, we're ready for it. We're used to it. It's the training, I think, we're missing. There's a cool story for me in, I think it's 1 Samuel, a familiar story, maybe for you, the story of David and Goliath. Are you familiar with that one? So do you know the prequel to that? Right before the battle happens, David comes in, and Saul is there, and Saul offers him his armor. So if you're going to fight a giant, wouldn't you want to wear the armor? I would. I'd want to suit up before I go out, right? The interesting thing is that King Saul says he was head and shoulders taller than everybody else in the land. And David he was like the runt of the family, kind of like me. He's a short guy, right? Do I have short man syndrome? What? Yes? I do not. I will come up there. I won't. But that's David. He's the short guy, okay? He's the smallest. I think he has 6 other brothers. And imagine for a moment, he's there getting ready to go out and fight. And he says, go ahead, and Saul says, use my armor. So he puts it on. I imagine he looks like a hobbit, with the breastplate down to his ankles, right? And he's out there, I'm ready to go. But he refuses the armor. Why does he do that? If you've read the story, he refuses it because he's used to training a different way. He's used to training with a sling. He even tells the story, I've killed a bear and I've killed a lion with my bare hands and my sling. That's what I've trained with, is what he's saying. You get it? He has trained I would say he's trained in God's way, because he also says, when I killed the bear and killed the lion, the Lord was with me, I did it with his power. So he has trained already in God's, you could say in God's weaponry right there. So he didn't want to use the armor that didn't fit him. That makes sense? You're connecting those 2 dots? He didn't want to use the armor that didn't fit. That wasn't a one-size-fits-all. Saul's armor was actually like, if you live up to this, if you're a big enough man for this armor, you can wear it. Then it'll fit you. Thankfully, that's not how God's armor works. You could be the littlest guy. You can be the girl who never, lived up to someone else's expectations. You can be the one who's trying to pull yourself out of the gutter and get your life back on track. God's armor fits you. Okay? It fits every time. God's armor is one size fits all. So the cool thing is, there is this transformation that takes place. The transformation when we put on God's armor, when we train for that, there's a transformation. We are not living through our own spirit, our own power. We're not fighting the battle on our own. That transformation happens. But the transformation I'm talking about takes training, not trying. Don't confuse those. The transformation of putting on God's armor, it takes training, not trying. Now, I know you're thinking, well, that sounds like the same. That it's not the same. Training and trying are not the same. I was watching Heather play violin. I'm so going to embarrass her right now. Are you in the room, Heather? She wouldn't admit it anyway. But did you watch her play violin? Did you stop worshiping for a second and just watch her play? Oh my goodness, that's so good. She gets up here and plays when she's on, and she doesn't just try to do a good job. She does a good job. Why? I asked her this in between services because I embarrassed our piano player first service. But she does a good job because she's training at violin since she was a kid. So this isn't a battle to her that she's not used to. Does that make sense? She's done this before. I mean, she gets the music for today 2 weeks in advance, and she goes home and she's practicing and practicing. But even before that, back till since she was a little kid, she's been playing violin and training at this. Put the analogy on the armor of God, the battles that we go through. If you're training for it, the next temptation that comes along, the next battle that comes along, you're going to be better suited for that because you've done the training. You've put in the time. Just like David using the sling, he's used to it. This isn't new. And yes, God is the one who directed that stone. But David put in the time training, you see. The same thing with the drummer. My goodness, I love our drummers. You love Mike and Jesse on the drum. Thank you guys for working so hard. I love it. Love it. I love our band too. Can I just pause and say that? This is so fun for me. Yeah. I love that because these guys are so consistent every week. And yes, I'm pumping them up. But I love them because they are consistent. They do the training. They put in the time. They don't just show up and like, well, what are we doing today? No, they show up ready, prepared for battle. They have trained and put in the time. And it's the same thing with us in the battles of life, the temptations that come our way, those fiery arrows that the devil would throw at us. And he'll spin it. He'll make you think it's your husband, your wife. He'll make you think it's the relationships. It's the kids. It's your job. It's the devil, I'm telling you. It's the spiritual forces, the authorities, the powers. That's what's trying to knock us off our feet. But God says, through my power, through my armor, you can stand strong and stand firm, and when the battle comes and goes, you're still standing. He's good that way. I love sports. I'm a big sports guy. At least I was more of a sports guy when I was younger. I'm getting older and slower, and so not as much. But I love, my dad was a huge sports fan. He was our coach as a kid. And we played Little League and T-ball and all that stuff. And he was our coach probably from the time I was 6, I think, till like 15, 16. And any baseball, Little League players here? You know, right, one guy. One guy right in the front. Seriously, no one's played Little League? Come on. This is America. Who's played Little League? 8 of us. All right. Great. So if you've never played Little League, this is how there's a ball. Oh, okay, so you know baseball. My dad, though, he was such a good coach. You know, he took me from like the T-ball days, you know, when the ball's just sitting there on the tube and any loser can really play T-ball because it's just sitting there, right? Hey. No, but I was good at T-ball. I was so good. I was hitting home runs all the time. I mean, I was like really, really good. And then Little League comes along, and the ball's flying at my face at 320 miles an hour, right? It's no fun. I hadn't trained for that. I didn't train for that because the ball was just sitting there on the tee the whole time. So what happened that first year I played Little League, the ball's coming at me so fast, I'm so scared, you know, it's flying at my face, and I would lean out of the way, I would close my eyes, you know, and I'd be swinging, and I would get off balance. It was horrible. And Dad, I mean, he's probably embarrassed, but Dad goes, okay, buddy, I got to take you, we're going to take you home, I'm going to get you some batting practice. I'm going to get you to the point where you're holding your ground, keeping your feet planted. I want you to watch that ball come in. I want you to watch the ball make contact with the bat. You know, he's giving me great stuff. And I needed my dad's training at that. I needed his experience. I needed to follow his instruction. The cool thing that happened is on year number 2, check this out, I didn't strike out at all. I got to be leadoff hitter for like year 2 and year 3. Did you hear me? I didn't strike out at all. Right? It was so good. Yay! I got a yay from a little one in the balcony. I didn't strike out at all because I took my dad's training. I took the batting practice. You know, I took it seriously too. And I went home and I would work after school. When summer came along, I was in the backyard. He was throwing the ball at me, getting me not afraid of the ball. I remember seriously, he would be like, hold still. I'm going to throw this at you lightly. And it's not going to hurt. Like, what a dad, you know? So I needed my dad's advice, though. I needed his experience. I needed his training. The neat thing to me is that we need our Father in heaven. We need his experience and his training as well, don't we? He says it this way in the book of Isaiah. He says that my thoughts are not your thoughts, and neither are my ways your ways, says the Lord. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Boy, we need his advice, don't we? Don't you need his advice when you're going through the difficult time, the battle that you're in right now? We do. We need our Father's advice. So he's giving us advice here in Ephesians chapter 6 to say, when you're going through the battle, put on my armor. Wear my truth, wear my righteousness, which is his rightness, his right way. Wear his shoes of peace, the gospel of peace that is so ready to forgive. Peace isn't just about us being at peace, being restful. It's sometimes about that, but peace is about forgiveness, reconciliation. That's what his peace is about. Spreading his truth, that gospel of peace. That's the advice we need from our Heavenly Father. The neat thing to me that happens, you know, when we go through the batting practice, and that's the question for you. Are you going to batting practice? Are you going to spring training? Are you spending time in the backyard with Dad, playing catch, playing ball, getting used to that? Because when it comes to the battles, most of us aren't. I'll admit to that. Most of the time, it's so easy for me to do what Paul said, we live in the flesh. And most of the time, that's where we live. But I think he's calling us to get to practice. Look at the battles that come and know what's happening. See it for what it is. See it for the battle that it is, and then ask him, Lord, teach me this truth through it. Lord, give me your faith as a shield. put that helmet of salvation on so that the arrows can't penetrate, so that I don't get down, I don't get deceived, I don't get off kilter and fall off my feet, but I can stand my ground. That's the batting practice, the spring training I'm talking about. Does that make sense? Good. The thing that happens, though, in that training, what we get from that is a test. And it doesn't feel like a good test. It's not the kind of thing you want, I know, but it's the test that tests your character. Training tests our character. And we need to put on his character. That's what this is about. It's not about our own strength. It's not about our own goodness, our own rightness, our own truth. It's about his truth. It's about his character overall. And that is what we put on. Training tests our character. Anyone went driving yesterday? Anybody go driving in the storm? That many, seriously? You guys are crazy. Seriously, what were you driving for yesterday? What did you need that you did not have at home and you wanted to go drive in a blizzard? That was like the blizzard of the winter right there. So what happened 2 weeks ago, do you remember we had another whiteout, maybe 2-3 weeks ago? But it was a morning like that, and I was driving here to church, and it was such a whiteout. The windshield was frosted over, and my windshield wipers weren't working, and there was frost on the inside of my window. How does that happen? Was I breathing heavy or something? But it was frosted on the inside of my window to the point where I was afraid I'm not going to be able to see the guy in front of me, and every once in a while I could see the tail lights, right? So I wanted to stay close enough but not hit him, and then thinking about the guy behind me. You know, is he going to come in and hit me? So then all of a sudden, this idiot comes up and pulls on the right side of the road and goes around me on the right. I'm sorry, if you're here and I just called you an idiot, I'm sorry. Forgive me. But seriously, who passes on the right? Who does? Who passes on the right? One guy in the back. I know you do. So the dude, though, was it you that passed on the right? So he passes on the right. I'm freaked out. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? And I'm a pretty safe driver. I've not been in an accident other than I did get rear-ended a couple months back. No fun. No fun. But other than that, I've not been in an accident. I've been a safe driver for years and years. But what happens if I decided to stop the vehicle in that snowstorm and I want to get out and fix my wipers because I couldn't see? Is it safer for me inside my car or outside? Inside, right? One brave person in the balcony, thank you. That's Deb, right? No, it wasn't Deb. I'm safer inside the vehicle. I'm inside the protection of my vehicle. That's where I'm safest, right? It's the same way with God's armor, though, isn't it? We are safer inside his armor. We're safer inside his protection. Are you seeing that? That's where we're safest. The cool thing that happens to me is you continue, you know, like I'm driving down the road still in the armor of my vehicle, safe, and I'm operating the gas without really thinking about it, the brakes, the windshield wipers, the radio, the heat, you know, the texting and driving, everything that you had to do to drive. Good, you're here. But everything you've got to do to drive, and I'm making it there. I wasn't texting and driving, but I was able to do that. How was I able to do that without really thinking about it in those dangerous, you know, in the dangerous situation? Training. You were with me. I was able to do it with training because I've been driving for 24, something like that, years, a long time. That's how I can do it from the training that I've put in. Does that make sense? Actually, I've been driving longer than that because most drive at 16. I was driving at 12. Do you want to hear the story of me driving at 12? You don't? You do? Okay. So, excuse me. When I was 12, when I was a kid, I would work with my dad a lot. And he was a carpenter, and he was a builder. So he had a job down in Battle Creek, down by Lansing, you know where Battle Creek is? And it was a road trip. We were gone for a week, and very fun trip. I remember it, lots of details. But on the way home was the coolest thing. I mean, as a 12-year-old, here I am sitting in the front seat of the van. And this is one of those old work vans, right? It's a big old van, not a little tiny little work truck. This is a big old full-size van stacked, you know, to the top with tools, right? Buckets of nails, you know, table saw, skill saw, chop saw, every saw, in just lumber. I mean, if we'd have gotten an accident, it wouldn't have been the other car that would have hurt. It would have been all the tools in the back of my head that would have hurt. It was that full, okay? So here's what Dad does. This is how cool my dad is. We're driving, and he he kicks his seat back, he pulls back and he stays in his seat. He's like, hey, buddy, steer for me. I'm gonna get a little shut-eye. Seriously, I'm not kidding. This isn't like a John Clark far-fetched story, okay? This is the real truth right here. Don't tell him I said that. We're going to cut this out of the video, actually. We'll cut it out. Everyone say, hi, John. Hi, John. No, but Dad, he did. He pulls his seat back, and he stays there. He's like, hey, steer for me. I'm going to get a little shut-eye. Now, to me as a 12-year-old, I'm like, yeah, that is cool. I'm driving. So I get out of my passenger seat, right, and he's over here. He's like 12 feet away. I get over, and there's this little milk crate in between, and I'm on my knees, okay, driving, steering, and he's in the driver's seat. This is crazy, right? It's so stupid. But I'm loving it. I'm thinking I'm the man, I'm driving, and I'm just steering the car, and it's dark out, which is probably why he thought, this is a good idea if the cop, sees us, I'm driving. It gets even better, though, honestly. He says to me, hey, if I'm slowing down or speeding up, tell me. Who does that? Who does that? That's how your parents were in the 80s, though. You guys were crazy. You were. You were. There were no seatbelt laws, right? I mean, the 80s, you could smoke in public places back then, and kids could drive at 12. So, I don't know. That had nothing to do with what I was preaching about, but I wanted to hear if you could laugh with me. The cool thing to me, though, is that we spend all this time driving, all this time training, and what happens? We get used to driving, we get used to it, to the point where in these conditions, these stormy conditions, these battles of life, when it really counts, that's when the training matters. Does that make sense? That's when the training really matters. Okay, so I've got one more point for you. You guys have been so sweet and just hanging in there with me. If you've caught nothing else, I want to share one more idea with you. That this thing we're talking about, this armor of God, this protection for us in these battles, the armor of God it's not about just you getting by okay. It's not about you just succeeding and life being all right. I really believe that the armor of God, it's really about the person of Jesus. The armor of God is about the power of Jesus. And I think the armor of God is about the purpose of Jesus. Let's look at the first one. Just really quickly, we're going to be out of here in just a few minutes, but the armor of God is about the person of Jesus, because if you look at the list, the truth, the peace, the righteousness, the faith, salvation, the word, every single one of those is represented in the character of Jesus Christ. Do you see that? Tell me this, who is the way, the truth, and the life? Jesus is the truth. What does Romans say? Romans says that there's none righteous, no, not one. But throughout Scripture, we are told that there is one righteous Lamb. Who is that? Jesus. When we put on the righteousness, it's not us being good. We put on His righteous character. We put on Jesus. The armor of God is about the person of Jesus through and through, from beginning to end. It always has been. When we hold up the shield of faith, who's the author and the finisher of our faith? Paul says it. Jesus. Jesus is the author and the finisher of our faith. Our faith comes from Jesus. And salvation comes from no one but who? Jesus. My favorite, though, is the last one, the sword, the Word of God. Do you realize that is the only offensive weapon here? There's no other weapon. You've got a shield. Yeah, you could club them up against the head with a shield, but you got a belt. You gonna strangle them? The belt's holding it all up, right? You've got the righteousness, the breastplate, you got shoes. But the sword is the only one that is an offensive weapon. And Jesus used that so well when He was in His 40 days in the desert fasting before He went into ministry, and He was up against Satan. And some might think that was possibly the biggest battle of His life up to that point. What did He use? What did Jesus use to go against Satan? He used the Word of God. Jesus, isn't that a cool thing? Jesus Himself, God in the flesh, still used the Word of God against the devil. So take that as an example. The armor of God is about the person of Jesus. The second one is the armor is about the power of Jesus. Remember, it's not about your own strength. Because the truth is, every single battle we go through, there's a point of weakness, isn't there? We go through weak times, we go through struggles and temptations, and honestly, sometimes we fall. You know that. Sometimes we don't make it through the battle. It doesn't mean that the war is over. It doesn't mean you lost completely. It just means this battle, you might not have won. God didn't give up on you, though. If you've come through a battle just recently and you think you've lost, I want to give you hope that it wasn't about your power to begin with. Your battle you've gone through, you're going through right now, it's not about your strength and your power. It's not about you doing the right thing necessarily. It's about you putting the armor of God on and wearing His character. See it through His truth. See it through His righteousness and His peace. And you can continue through. He will pick you back up like Peter walking on the water. He will reach out to you and lift you back up on the solid ground again. He's done it with me. He'll do it to you. He'll do it every time. The last one is that the armor of God is about the purpose of God. And this, I think, is the hardest one sometimes because we so badly want things to work out the way we can imagine it. Don't you want it that way? You want your battle. You've got it all calculated. You've got it figured out how the battle is going to work out your way. But the sweet thing about Jesus is He's got a purpose in mind. He's got a purpose in mind, and it's bigger than you can imagine. It's grander. I mean, it includes every single one. Look around. Every single one of us either now is going through a battle, or you've come through a battle, or you're about to go into a battle. And Jesus is so good at math that He can calculate all that together and put it all together into His bigger purpose. Isn't that beautiful? That's our God. And I believe that is that's one of the reasons, that's one of the purposes of the armor of God. To bring us together in His strength, in His character, in His righteousness. So when you're going through the battle, don't forget to put in the training. Ask the Lord Jesus to point out to you, what do you see through this? What is your truth, Lord? Give me your faith to stand through this. Give me the strength in your armor, in your character, in your person, Jesus Christ, that I might stand against the enemy and not fall. Can you do this? Can we stand together? As the band plays, we're going to sing a song, Lord, I Need You. And I pray that these words are just an echo from your heart. I pray that you sing these lyrics out and make this a prayer. And thank you so much. Praise the Lord.
Bowing here, I found my rest. Without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need.
Thank you for joining us at Westside Community Church. We hope to see you at one of our Sunday services at 9 or 11 a.m.